Welcome to the Wedco podcast, where wedding wisdom meets street smarts.
We're dishing out all the tips, tricks, and wedding goss to take your wedding to the next level.
Time to ditch the formalities and get this party started.
This episode is brought to you by Studio Ninja.
When we are so busy with all of our work and we just need that extra helping hand to keep on top of all of our weddings.
With their automatic emails, scheduling, questionnaires, and invoicing.
It's a perfect tool to take your business to the next level. Studio Ninja. Hello and welcome to the Wedco podcast. I'm Togger.
And I'm Joel, and we're here at the amazing RedLeaf Wollombi.
And today we have Matt from RedLeaf on the podcast with us.
Thank you
so much for coming on, mate.
Thank you.
And thank you for hosting us here, man.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
Thank you.
And like I was saying to you earlier this morning, I feel like every other venue, the Instagram looks way better than when you rock up.
Yep.
Definitely the opposite way around here.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Man, when we rocked up and drove down that driveway there and you could look over towards the villa.
Yeah, it's stunning. A good, this time of year in autumn, it's so much better. So you get more visuals and so it's very good.
It's
Absolutely
stunning. Just like a big property. Yeah, exactly that. Like a massive property. I thought it was going to be a lot smaller, a lot more confined. It almost felt like there was going to be where you've got the spot for the marquee out there and then the building, it was going to be very close, but it's like everything's got room to breathe. And like you said, it's not like so far apart that it's like all the way over yonder and you've got big walks to the bathroom. Like it's nice and cozy, but still like a big enough property to like
and all the areas talk to each other, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
How many people can you have for a wedding here?
We sort of normally say 200 is comfortable. I mean, we've had up to 300.
Awesome.
When you start to get to those numbers, it's very much a logistical exercise. So you need to very much be well organised, and you've got 300 people coming through the front gate at once. It's in a half-hour period. It's got to make sure you're well, it's well organised. So that's the main thing. Okay.
Before we delve in too much, do you want to go a little bit into the backstory of purchasing this property, how long you've had it for, and just the backstory?
Yeah, sort of interesting. Never planned to get into weddings. We're looking for a bigger house in Sydney and then found this in a magazine. So I came for a drive one Sunday and the rest is history. And then we originally planned, we thought, okay, well, this is 10 years ago, so when Airbnbs were just starting. So it was originally for an Airbnb. And then slowly, which has been nice, people asking us to do weddings. And so we sort of just started to do it gradually. So people had obviously discovered us slowly. This is way before, not way before Instagram, but before Instagram was sort of taking foot. And so it progressed from there. And so we sort of obviously learned a lot of lessons along the way. And but by and large, the sort of our thought process was, well, if we're going to do weddings, because it was basically being booked out for weekends away anyway. It was like, we'll retain that business model and make it a nice experience for people to say, okay, well, essentially really sort of like going away with your own family to your own home and inviting people for a big dinner party, which happens to be your wedding. And so we sort of want it to be that more relaxed and whole of weekend experience.
Yeah, perfect.
Was like hosting, like have you this purchase, was that part of your, what you did before this? Or?
Yeah, I had a couple of other Airbnbs. So it wasn't something that was completely new to us. And then, but obviously the weddings and events was something new because we had the property has a second building on it, which used to be a pizza restaurant. And so we didn't obviously know what to do with that. And then so obviously that just morphed into being a great space for the caterers to work out of. So it's worked very well.
Yeah.
Far out.
That's awesome.
It's a good story. And just evolving. And then we just spoke to Joe, and so you've got them on as a partnership as well now moving forward. Yeah.
So look, over the years we've tried to retain flexibility as much as possible, but then what we've sort of learnt by keeping sort of data on the different weddings is like, well, most people, with a lot of the different suppliers gravitating to, especially in that sort of bigger ticket items like marquees and catering, we're sort of gravitating to a small group of caterers. And so then that sort of posed a question, well, was choice necessarily that important?
Yeah.
If we can offset not having the choice with some other key benefits, lower costs, new kitchen down there, consistency, then we think that offset not having the choice. So that's why we've gone down the route of having the single caterer. We think we can provide a much better elevated experience for the clients and the bride and groom.
Definitely.
So you're building a new commercial kitchen out the back over there?
Yeah, so the property is 22 years old, so we're just replacing the existing kitchen that was there, which was 20 years old. So it's had a good wear and tear over the years.
Yeah.
And so they're obviously great opportunity with Pepe's coming on board to refit that kitchen fit for purpose for how that, what their menus are. And so we've had great input from Pepe's to actually, how do they want that kitchen to look. And so we want it to be a very immersive, interactive experience. So, the big double doors open, guests can walk through, see the chefs cooking away. And so, we want people to be able to walk through and interact with the process.
Awesome. Beautiful. I think even having the whole weekend, that was one of the first questions I was asking before was, do you book 1 or 2 weddings per weekend? But how you're saying like just having the whole weekend for the one wedding, I feel like that doesn't happen anywhere else.
Yeah, I was very adamant about it. So it's like this. Doesn't matter which way you look at it. People spend a lot of money.
Yep.
Everyone's got different budgets. The idea of being shuffled in and out in a very short period of time just doesn't sit well with me. So we want people to have that sort of whole of weekend experience. We only do one wedding a weekend. It's yours for the weekend. Have something the night before with your family and a bridal party. Have the wedding day and have some sort of recovery as well.
Yeah. Just people are so much more relaxed. They actually get to hang out with their family the day before. So then on the wedding day, they're not saying hello to everyone the whole day. Like we're already seeing.
Yeah, and then come the end of the night, you don't feel like the weekend's over. You can say, hey guys, go home, come back tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's quite nice.
Yeah, we'll see you in another year.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing. So as far as like locations for the ceremonies,
yes,
like all the majority of the photos I see are kind of like canapé hours and reception in front of the villa here. Is there a few different options that people do for their ceremonies here?
Yeah, and I always say, look, depending on the time of year, whether you're middle of winter or in the middle of summer.
Yep.
You obviously want to, if it's summer, you want to be chasing the shade. So more often than not, it's in front of the villa for the ceremony. Yep. So, it's nice for the guest arrival. If it is a warmer day, they're still in the shade.
Yep.
So you're looking after that guest comfort piece. In the shoulder seasons or winter, you've got the lavender area, which is out in the sun, where in those time of year it doesn't matter too much.
Yeah.
So there's different spaces that people can use.
Yeah.
And it depends on the size of the wedding and things like that as to, what suits best.
Yeah. What does like the team look like behind RedLeaf? Like, is it just yourself and the groundskeepers, or have you got like planners, coordinators? Like,
no. So we've tried to retain that open architecture. I think you get a better the immediate RedLeaf team is myself, Greg the gardener, Alicia the housekeeping, and then the property managers that are here on the actual wedding day itself. So they're the sort of the key players from a RedLeaf perspective. So it's very much that sort of the facilities management side of things. And then, I think it's really nice to be able to share and have. So I sort of have always said that the broader RedLeaf team is all the other suppliers. It's, the photographers, it's the entertainment, it's, the catering, it's everyone. So it's a joint effort.
Yeah.
And so and everyone works very well together. There's often comments around how, it's amazing to see how everyone works really well together.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think it is the place for wedding vendors at the moment. They're like, if I can work anywhere, I'm going to RedLeaf.
Yeah. Good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like seriously, we put it on our Instagram that we're coming down here to film, and the amount of messages we got,
like
the dream, I want to work there one day. Like we got an influx.
Oh yeah,
very good.
Oh yeah, massive. In fact, we actually had a few people give us some questions.
Right, okay.
So I might shoot a couple your way. How many people can you accommodate? We already covered that.
What about for guests for staying while we're at the accommodation?
Yep.
How many people can stay on site?
So the house has 6 bedrooms. They're all upstairs.
Yep.
So 12 if you're sharing.
Yep.
And then within Wollombi, it's one of the great things around where we're located. Within a 3-5 kilometre radius, you've got accommodation for up to about 100 people.
Yeah, beautiful.
All whole of house Airbnbs. For the bigger weddings, the Colburn, the bigger hotels. So it's well catered for.
Do you find most people are organising buses when they're having weddings out here to get guests back out, or have they got Ubers and taxis around?
No. You don't. I think there's. Someone's told me I think there's 15 taxis in Hunter Valley. So. No, so the great local bus transport company, Grape Experience Wine Tours, and they do the majority of the bookings here, and they look after. And so they're local, smaller buses. They know the streets.
Yeah,
they do a door-to-door service. So it's a
sick.
It's a really great service.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Cool. Yeah.
See, this one kind of hashes on that before about the team, but do you have like an in-house coordinator? I guess that's yourself.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah.
And again, we try and 2 weeks before the wedding, we gather all the information for our property managers. So we've got obviously our own calendar. And so I will have a very quick look through that, and very rarely do I need to say anything. But, you know, every now and then I might just sort of throw a few questions either to the wedding planner or the couple and just say, have you thought about this?
Yeah.
But and that's just purely from the property side of things. Why have you thought about this? Or so they're like,
if someone wanted to get married here, do they need to have a coordinator or like on a day coordinator or anything like that? Or are you guys covering that?
Yeah, no. So think about the property manager's facilities management.
Yep.
So the physical asset of the property. Yeah, so clients need to have a wedding planner, or Peppies have a great on-day coordination service if they're wanting a more low-key touch sort of thing.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Okay, cool. What's the most extravagant or unique request that you've had that you've accommodated for?
So
that you know the answer. I'm loving that.
Yeah, this is straight up.
Straight to mine. So the groom had to come out the night before. I think it was either the night before the wedding they were about to check in, or the 2 days before. And I was standing out the front with him, looking out over the lake. He's like, Matt, the lake had looked really good with a fountain in it. I said, sure. Anyway, 2 hours later, I got a phone call from the wedding planner saying the groom wants a fountain in the lake.
No joke.
So on the day of the wedding, we had some guy from Newcastle, a fountain company, out here wading through the lake, installing the fountain.
Is there a fountain there now? I didn't know.
No, well, and it didn't quite shoot up straight. It sort of shot off to the left.
It's a bit flaccid. I love it. Oh my God.
What a request.
That is so good. And that it was his idea too. Yeah. The fountain. It'll make my day.
So anyway, if that's what you want, go for it.
It's probably in none of the photos. It was just there. It existed. That's awesome. And then lastly, your venue is gorgeous. Can we do a tour before we book?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool.
Yeah. So we do we don't do open days or anything like that. Mm-hmm. We do one-on-one appointments with clients. Obviously, during sort of September through to May, it's hard to do it on a weekend, but during the week, we'll see you during the week. So and that's pretty easy for most people. If you're serious about wanting to book, you'll take half a day off work and or chuck a sickie.
Well, where are like couples getting married here? Where are they coming from? Are a lot of them destinations? Like,
it's interesting. It's very obviously originally Sydney, Newcastle. Now it's very widespread. Probably evenly Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland. Yeah. And then 20% overseas, where
awesome.
Australians living overseas coming back. You know, most of their guests are going to be coming from Sydney or Melbourne, wherever it might be, and so it just makes sense for them to come back here. So I was just literally on the phone call to someone in London this morning, 6 o'clock on the way up.
Awesome.
Yeah, looking to book. So
how far from Sydney to here again was it?
Sydney to London?
No, Sydney to here.
About an hour and 45.
Oh, yeah. Cool. So they're just flying into Sydney and then driving out here, and there's plenty of accommodation out here as well.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
That's awesome. And I lost my train of thought. Had a really good question.
It was about a fountain.
It wasn't about a fountain.
Like, as far as like on Instagram, RedLeaf's everywhere at the moment. Within marketing and everything like that. It is kind of the go-to destination for weddings currently. Has that been a really conscious effort for you, marketing, branding wise, to get it to this level?
I don't think it was a deliberate decision. Bit tying into the original vision of we want it to be whole of weekend experience, whole of family experience. We want it to feel like your own.
Yes.
That my mate Jamie looks after our Instagram. And that was during COVID. We made that decision. It was actually to do with government grants and things like that about marketing and things like that. And that's when I spoke to Jamie about looking to do our Instagram. And the discussions then was very much around to fit into that business, well, that philosophy that we had. It's just like, well, I didn't want the Instagram to be all about us. It's about the clients. It's like, what do they want? And so that's sort of probably, I think that's maybe resonated with people. It's sort of like we're giving people what they want to see and what might be interesting to them, and rather than us sort of saying, well, this is what we think you should do.
Yeah. It's like I went overseas to get married because I just wanted immediate family, but we could all stay together for a week. And I just really wanted that for our family. And I think that people like, you know, when you got Peppy's on board, and I think they were talking about like, well, in the future, when you got the kitchen here, you might be able to do like the brekkie the day before, the brekkie the morning of and everything, and just having family here.
Yeah.
I think people are craving something like that
Yeah.
than just, I rock up at 2:00, the ceremony's at 3, we're out by 11 and it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like I think you can see it as soon as you see the villa and how you're saying everyone can be on site. The kitchen in there is stunning.
Yeah.
You know, so I think it's just for people to be able to enjoy it and be a part of a family or close group of friends. I think that's what resonates as well.
Yeah. Well, I've got no data to prove this. Well, it's just my gut feel that I think, you know, especially in the Australian context, a secular society where, you know, weddings are not necessarily religious based anymore, but they are very much sort of where they've become very much part of our culture, and that whole of weekend experience is part of that as well. So it's like, well, we don't have many rites of passage in a westernised culture, like, you know, some parts of Australia. So, you know, I think it's becoming more significant for that reason, and so people are embracing it, that whole of weekend experience.
Yep.
For that reason.
And I saw the veggie in the herb garden out the back there.
Yeah.
Is that getting built up as well? Like it focuses heavily, and I think as soon as I read that, I'm like, I want to come here. Like, you know.
Yeah, well, the fence was 20 years old, and it sort of was starting to fall over. So we're redoing all the fencing around the veggie garden. And yeah, with Peppy's coming on board, you know, the veggie garden sits here outside the house, and then you've obviously got the pathway to the restaurant or the commercial kitchen. So do we extend? You know, that's probably the next iteration of being able to have that permanent caterer here, or do we extend the vegetable garden across the back there? It gets great sun. We've got good irrigation. So do we actually then start to be able to have our own, you know, salads and things grown here? So yeah, that's sort of probably the next stage.
Yeah, that'd be unreal.
I feel like every other vendor that come here, like when we're talking about catering, we're talking planning and everything they do reflects on RedLeaf. Mm-hmm. So with you partnering up with Peppy's, it's like kind of, okay, cool. We know catering is amazing. We're working as a team. It reflects really well on RedLeaf. We're good. Is there a stage where planning goes down the same route where you're like, well, now we want planners to be, you know, a certain planner to be doing everything because it's going to elevate our brand, or the open source, how you're doing at the moment, you think there's still value there?
I think in the, I sort of break it into two categories. So the bigger ticket pieces, marquees, the catering, to some degree furniture, makes sense to sort of narrow that focus.
Yep.
But I think for the other suppliers, wedding planners, photography, flowers, entertainment, and that sort of stuff, I think variety is probably a better thing.
Yep.
And just keeping that open. So, yeah.
Cool. Any of those businesses, your own businesses, like we've spoken to other venues that, like for me, you own this property and we're getting a marquee every single week and it's whatever it is, 10 grand or whatever. There's at some point I'm like, well, I'm going to buy the marquee so I can rent out the marquee. You know, is it?
Yeah. No, I say so. So what we've done, rather than buy a marquee, so we've gone down that route with Catalan marquees.
Yep.
So, you know, we're not marquee specialists. Yep. So no, Catalan, you're the marquee specialist. If something goes wrong with that, that's your problem.
It's on you.
But what we have done is to say to them, well, I'll take on that risk. So as of 2025, I now pay the marquee company no matter what happens.
Yep.
And then we on forward that cost obviously to the client. But the benefit of that is we've been able to reduce the overall cost because clients aren't going direct to the marquee companies.
Yep.
So we've brought that cost right down for the clients.
Beautiful. That's awesome.
And so being able to pass that saving on. So so it's, I think, you know, they're the sort of efficiencies we're looking for. How can we benefit? It's always the client first. The experience is elevated.
Yep.
Can they extract some value out of that? So lower cost. And then obviously there's benefits to us as well.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. And then even that you just know that you're getting that marquee every single time, you know, you're booking a year in advance, you've got all your dates, they've got your dates.
Correct.
So it's just a consistency, like you said, between every wedding, you've got that.
Yeah.
It's not a last minute, 3 weeks out, we've got a wedding and now we need to scramble for a marquee.
Yeah, correct. And then you have some marquee company that doesn't really know what they're doing and it's late and everyone's put out. So yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. We've had some bad experiences.
So word of the year in Australia is winter weddings in Australia.
Yep.
All the other vendors go in Europe. Come on back. So is that something? Is that something you want to focus on? Like where we live up here, Byron, the Gold Coast. I'm like, why are people not getting married in winter?
Yeah,
it is the best.
Yeah. But we're booked out in August this year and some of July. So it's obviously a little bit quieter, but yeah, we've got wedding. And I don't. You guys are here today. I mean, it's extraordinary outside. You know, you get 22, 23 degree days.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, we often say, look, why don't you think about a beautiful late long lunch out in front of the villa? And then when it, 5 o'clock, it comes cool, go into the marquee, dancing, your bar, fire pits, you know, you get the best of both worlds. So, it's, I didn't, why we don't, not more people do it. So.
Yeah. And it's coming from like a vendor point of view. Tons of vendors will whinge and bitch that they can't get on a preferred supplier list. What do you look for a vendor as far as putting them on a list of someone you're comfortable recommending to your couples?
So we don't have a preferred supplier list as such. Those that are on our list, so obviously we've touched on the catering and marquees for the reasons said. For the others, for example, the wedding planners that we say that are on the list have essentially, it's been by a sort of just osmosis over the year, not osmosis, but just sort of it's been a gradual process of they've been there from the beginning.
Yeah.
They've had our back, we've had their back, and we see eye to eye on where things are going, and they come along the journey with us, you know. So that's probably the only thing I look for. I don't, and so it's the same with any of the other suppliers. I always say to the clients, you can use whoever you want for photography, you can use whoever you want for flowers, entertainment. We don't get too fussed about that. But at the same time, we keep an eye on it. Yeah.
You definitely got to keep an eye.
But look, I think it's you got to really stuff up if you. So everyone's pretty good. So
do you have anyone that's like on a blacklist that you're like, no, 100%, like we're not having them back?
There's been, look, there's people in your head, but it's not necessarily because they were bad. It's just more that they, a country regional wedding is a very different process for the suppliers coming here and versus perhaps a city wedding in a hotel.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's more to do with that. So it's not necessarily someone bad. It's just more that probably doesn't.
They're not well versed.
It doesn't suit what your business, their business model. So fish out of water basically.
Recording everything a lot in like say Mullaney, like the Sunshine Coast hinterland and everything like that, and it can definitely be tricky between wedding venues and neighbours.
Yep.
Was there much pushback with you taking over here and like extending out? I know there was already a restaurant here, so it's not really any difference as far as noise-wise goes. Yeah. Has there been a big pushback or anything like that?
No, Wollombi has been really great. We obviously we try and interact with the community as much as possible. Obviously, local accommodation gets supported. Definitely. The town's just down the road, so the cafes and the restaurants hopefully get supported. They all. Yep. We give them the roster 6 months in advance and let them know, how many weddings we've got on, how many people they're likely to be in the village and things like that. So they can, they've relayed. That's awesome. They've said they can definitely feel when there's a wedding on. So so which is good. So everyone seems to benefit from it.
Yeah, that's great because that's definitely one thing that we noticed when chatting to the people in Mullaney. They were like, oh, they almost hated us and they were trying to get rid of us, like all the weddings and stuff, because they were just an old farming town kind of thing. So I think it's awesome that because that was our thought process was we're like, well, if you've got all of the like 3 or 4 different venues, all of those people have got to stay somewhere, they've got to eat somewhere, or like all those things, and we're like, it's bringing so much money. And it was weird that they weren't seeing that. So I think that's awesome that you are providing that for them.
Yeah, look, you're always going to have there's always some detractors in the village, but the other thing that people I think, and you're never going to be able to quantify it completely, but you often hear about wedding guests here saying, oh my God, I never knew Wollombi existed. Yeah. And they're just down the road in Sydney. And so you can't tell me they don't come back for a weekend away. And so you're never going to be able to quantify that, but you'd have to think that people are going to come back and visit outside of the wedding.
Yeah. And they even talked about like wedding tourism and like you're talking about like grants and everything like that from the government. Like there has to be like marketing done to show like, yeah, cool, you're booking these venues here, but how much benefit that is to local towns. That is so tangible, that amount of money.
Yes.
And so it would be good to see like a branch like wedding tourism and like being recognised for that. Because like it's just you're supporting 4 other cafes up there and 10 other Airbnbs that all of a sudden their families are all paid for because of people coming from Sydney or from wherever to have a wedding here.
Yep.
and it's just like
no,
it's
good.
great. Like the feed down effect is insane.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just think that's most people don't think that wide and broad. But yeah, it's pretty cool to be able to like walk through, like for you to be able to walk through when a wedding's on and see like this cafe's full when it's usually empty, and probably 10 years ago it would have probably been empty all the time. You know, so like to see businesses boom because you're booming.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the town doesn't survive on us, but it obviously all helps. So,
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So yeah, are there like when we just drove past Cessnock this morning and even like stopped at a little cafe in there, like you're talking about, we would never have stopped there otherwise. And now I'll tell people about that cafe. Like if you're ever in Newcastle, like head out that way. Like it's beautiful. So yeah, just little things like that.
Yeah. Is there, other than obviously the kitchen, like that's a big project that you guys are undertaking at the moment. Is there any big like changes or things that you guys are looking to do over the coming years or months?
No, it's only started 2 weeks ago, so let me get my head around. Let me get when the checkbook shut.
The water fountain.
Is there a time frame at all behind the renos?
Yeah, so builders are great. Use them, many times before. They totally get it. So they're staying here at the moment. So they're occupying all the 6 bedrooms, and they have a lovely old time cooking. And so yeah, they know the time frames, and they're very reliable. We're not going to be impacted by wet weather, so yeah, they're good to go.
I know.
Beautiful. What was I going to say? As far as events here, like obviously you're catering for weddings.
Yeah.
Are you doing other like corporate kind of stuff or any other?
Yeah, like I think once, obviously, this is one of the benefits of having the permanent caterer here. That we can then start to look at that and go right. Gaps midweek. Do we start to look at doing different things like that? Whereas before it's sort of been a bit harder to do because you got to say to people, bring everything in, whereas we can now say, well, we can pretty much do everything for you if you wanted to. So yeah, so that's something. Yeah, that's probably the next sort of iteration. Once Peppies get on board and we're settled in. The hard thing is obviously weddings are booked so far in advance. That most of the calendar's blocked out. So
was like the place you were saying earlier that this place looked a lot different to how it does now.
Yes.
Was it? Was there always like a vision from the start that it was going to be this very European kind of style, or?
Yeah, no. So obviously the bones were here, the building was here. The original owners dropped in the other day. So they obviously had great vision because originally it was just a block of land just with nothing on it, and so they had this big pink house sort of sitting in the middle of it. But one of the prerequisites for purchasing property in the past for me has always been, especially in the country, it's got to have mature trees already planted because you can't wait that long to get them. So they'd already done that heavy lifting in regards to the mature trees. And essentially what we've done is just built the garden out around that. So all the hedging and pathways and things like that sort of just, worked with what they'd already sort of created to some degree. And then just filled in the blank, filled in the bit like painting a picture. So, yeah.
And when did you you bought the property 10 years ago? When did you kind of start looking at weddings around?
Well, people started asking, and then that's when we, so to their credit, the brides and grooms in those early days somehow found us because we didn't market
the pink house.
And then very we weren't sort of going at a super rate of speed in regards to doing the gardens, but then I sort of, my own pride sort of got in the way. I was like, oh God, these weddings are coming. We need to, not that it looked bad, but like, we need to make it look a bit better. So that's when we sort of started getting really busy on the gardens and thinking ahead and saying, well, if these are the spaces that people might like to use, we need to get them tarted up a bit.
Yeah. And it's just the one full-time, Greg, was it?
Yes, Greg. So he's out there at the moment blowing leaves.
I heard him raking, raking out the front as well.
He rakes the gravel. He's very proud of the gravel. He rakes it every week. So,
that's unreal.
Yeah.
This blew my mind. I was like, I was like, what's that noise? I went out there and I was like, I came back in. I was like, Steve, he's raking the gravel.
Someone's putting a fountain in.
There's a lot that goes. People sort of think, things just happen. It's like, no, there's someone that rakes the gravel every week.
I just thought from a high level point of view, it showed that level of eye to detail.
Yeah.
It just
you end up with little patches here and there. It's terrible.
It's all from experience, isn't it? You got to walk around the past and what's that? Come on, Greg.
There's a lump.
You're paying good money. You want your gravel raked.
Yeah, definitely.
Would you ever do anything like this again in the future? Like, would you look for another wedding venue or?
Yeah, but look, it's hard to find, tick those boxes. Is it unique? Mature trees, all that sort of stuff. It's very hard to find, tick the boxes. So look, if something came along, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you're saying not part of, where we are, there's a whole bunch of like the open days, trails, all that kind of stuff. You don't need to do any of that stuff. So you're not doing any of that?
It's not so much that we don't. It's not that we don't. I just prefer to do a one-on-one meeting with people.
Yeah.
You just understand what they want and share with them ideas, and you just get a better outcome, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
You build a better relationship. So yeah.
Yep. And you'd be on site with all of them when anyone's coming through to have a look at the property.
Yes. So something unique that they get to. And I like it. It's something nice.
Yeah,
I'd like to do it.
I read on the website about so you could eat inside. That's where the kitchen's going in now.
Yes.
Yeah. So will there still be, if people didn't have a marquee, could they still have dinner here without the marquee, or is everything going to be in the marquee moving forward?
It's pretty much, we're sort of moving forward everything under the marquee because a couple of reasons. We'll call it the garden room, so the restaurant area where the catering kitchen's going to be. The kitchen's great for probably a private dining space of up to about 20.
Yeah, okay.
But you really got to think through, well, if it, because I guess essentially talking about a wet weather option in many respects.
Yeah.
If it's really raining, you want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
So even a small wedding, you're just better off in the marquee. And then because we've driven the prices down, it sounds bad. The marquee company's going to hate me saying that. But no, there's cost savings for them.
Yeah.
It makes sense just to use the marquee now. And you actually, where the marquee is located, you just get a really great visual. You got, all the beautiful gardens around you, the lake next to you, and you look back on the house. So you actually get a much better visual of the property anyway. So
definitely.
Yeah.
So none of that brick pad or anything was down when you got here? Have you done all that since?
No, so that was our project 3 years ago. I got sick of ugly marquee flooring and
Or when they got a champagne tower in a marquee with a dodgy floor.
Yeah, dodgy floor, falls over.
Man.
It's slippery and the heels go out from underneath people. You've seen it all. It's chipped wood and this and that. And it's not cheap, marquee flooring.
Yeah.
And from our perspective, just like that's probably the most labour intensive and heavy. There's huge amount of equipment coming in each week.
Yeah.
So there's an environmental impact. There's impacts on everyone. So I sort of looked at it and went, well, wait a sec, how can we, what's the solution here? So I saw the visual from a place in London from the pattern, and then I sort of thought, well, wait a sec, how do we do this? So it was a tennis court company that built a tennis court, and which is essentially a concrete slab. And then we've tiled over the top. We've got the anchor points for Catalan marquees, so you don't have to have weights and things like that. So visually, it's much nicer.
Amazing.
Drains really well. So yeah.
So somewhere like built to spec to fit the marquee straight onto there.
Correct. So then everything's data driven. So we were looking at because we keep all the information about the weddings. It's like, well, what's the most common size marquee?
Yeah.
So there was basically 2 popped up. So there's anchor points for 2 marquees, and you can have a more traditional marquee on there if you want, but it just needs to be weighted. That's all. Yeah. So but they were the most popular marquees, and 90% of people use them. So
yeah. What do you think? Like couples coming through, do you have any tips? Like my biggest thing is I used to do a lot of Airbnb photography and make those properties look really nice. Is there any tips that you would have for like couples coming through that haven't booked a venue yet? Like little things to look out for or to consider when looking for a wedding venue?
Well, it's obviously personal. Well, if you're talking about regional, if you're talking about sort of regional things, it's more like it's fitting into what they want. How big's the bridal party? What sort of events do they want? What's their budget? What's included? So it's really up to them. Yeah. Because that's the hard thing. You really can't. There's so many great places to choose from. I'd never sort of poo-hoo any other venues or anything like that. Yeah. They're all great, and they're all great in their own right. And it's a personal choice.
Yep. And so do you think the biggest thing setting you apart, like venues aren't like yours at the moment? Like we're saying, every venue we're speaking to, a lot of venues we're speaking to, they're advertising. Venues don't typically have to advertise. They're always booked. And so it doesn't, it's kind of polar opposites of what you are at the moment. Do you think it's the actual structure that's really setting you apart, the level of service you're giving everyone? Like, is there a kind of a standalone thing that you think you guys are offering that is helping that?
I think it's all of it. So it's obviously the physical structure, the natural beauty, proximity to Sydney, ability to still have choice in regards to some suppliers, whole of weekend experience, personal touch.
We've got it.
I think it's putting it all together.
Yeah,
I think the fact that it's not like a facade, like there's a few venues around us where it looks really good, but you can't use it. You just get to use it as like a really nice backdrop, and then you're like, oh, cool. Like you get to use the rest of the property, like where the marquee is, like that kind of. So I think the fact that when we rocked up, we didn't know that you could stay here, and I was like, oh wait, you can stay here, and then you were saying like, a full weekend. I'm like, this is awesome. Like,
we want people to feel like it's their own home. They're inviting friends to their wedding at their own home, and you're just having a big dinner party basically.
Yeah.
Would a lot of the couples, would they stay on site and get ready here, whether bride and groom, whatever? Would they stay here and get ready here as well together?
Yeah. So house is well designed in that it's split into two. So there's sort of 4 bedrooms on one side, 2 on the other.
Yep.
So it does facilitate the ability for if it's bridegroom, to get ready separately if they want to. And then also local other accommodation as well. Sometimes it's, one part of the bridal party at one house and the other party somewhere else. So it just depends on what's the makeup of the bridal party and the family and things like that.
I think I did see a big list of places to see and places to go when you're here as well.
Yes.
So I'm sure like if people are looking for those accommodation options and cafes and restaurants and everything like that, that's all listed on your website as well.
Yes. Or there's a link to the Wollombi, Visit Wollombi webpage, and they've got everything there. So I'm not going to recreate the work. So go to the webpage.
Link in bio.
No, it's awesome.
Do you have one more there?
No. Well, the only thing I was going to say was like going back to like the prep, like the whole weekend experience. When I went over to Italy for Steve's wedding, I just remember like they kind of stayed in like this castle, and it was like same thing. There was like an epic kitchen, and it was like that was the hub, and like everyone was in the kitchen like making coffees and stuff like that, while like Kashir's wife was like getting dressed or like getting hair and makeup done, and then we took Steve aside to do like his vow reading or whatever, and just like it was so cool. And then we dart back into the kitchen, have like a couple of like things to eat. So I was like that from like a wedding point of view. It kind of almost breaks like all those traditions where you're like, oh, you've got to be apart and like don't see each other and all those. And instead it's just like you can make a really beautiful weekend of it with both your families, and like having like breakfast together, having coffee, like doing all those things. I'm like, dude, that like, I don't know. I just think that's like such a beautiful thing that you've created.
Yeah,
so
thank you.
It just feels really wholesome.
Yeah.
Like it does. Yeah. All right. Well, where can people find you if you've got any dates left? 2026.
2025 is pretty much gone.
Yeah.
2026 is we've already started taking bookings. So
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what is it on your Instagram and website and all that kind of stuff?
What are they?
Yeah.
It's RedLeaf at what is it? At RedLeaf Wollombi.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Perfect. Yep. Jump on there. You'll be able to find it. If you open Instagram, it'll pop up anyway.
You can see I'm techno ignorant.
You're like underscore. Awesome.
But yeah, mate, thank you so much for coming us on.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you for having us
so much for hosting.
It's been amazing.
Absolute dream. So
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Legend.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wedco podcast. We're dropping a fresh episode every week featuring industry professionals dishing out the wedding wisdom you need to turn those dreams into reality. Make sure you are following us on social media, you have those notifications turned on so we can help plan your wedding day. Your dream wedding day just got a whole lot easier. Thanks for listening.